welcome back. So we're discussing fiction terms more. Alright, so we're starting now with point of view. Point of view is about the narrator of the story. We're talking about who is the narrator here. Narrator's job, of course, is to tell you the story, but writers have options as to how to get that done. First-person narrator. The first-person narrator is easily detected, as you probably learned in high school, because in the text of the story, the narrator is actually saying I. I said this, I did this. So, first-person point of view gets you I. This is the concept of the narrator as a participant in the story. The narrator as a participant in the story. Second person also has a narrator that is a participant in the story. You don't see second person very often, but it's what happens when the text says you. You said this, you did this. If you know about fan fiction, then you might have actually run across a subgenre of fan fiction in which the writers have put you with some character in the story romantically. That's usually the concept there. So, you times whatever their favorite character in their series is. As far as officially published fiction, you usually only see this with choose-your-own-adventure novels, although there have been a couple of novelists who have chosen this for an otherwise traditional story. It's considered pretty unusual, though. Third person, as you can see there are multiple different kinds. Third person is the narrator as a non-participant. The narrator is not participating in any way in these actions. This narrator was just following other people around, like a camera. Alright. There are arguably either 3 or 4 different kinds of third-person narrators. Some people break down the categories and some people don't. Just depends on who you're talking to. I'm going to go ahead and break them down for you, though. So, third-person limited, roving, are the two that you are most likely to come across. So what it's actually short for is third-person limited omniscience. So we're talking about how much the narrator knows. If it is a limited, fully limited omniscience, you only have the thoughts and feelings and knowledge of one character. For example, the series Harry Potter. You only know what Harry thinks. You only know what Harry feels, and you only know what Harry knows. This is so true, in fact, that when Rowling gets to the point where she needs you to know what someone else thinks, specifically Snape, she has to create a magical workaround where Harry is picking up Snape's memories out of the water and putting them into his own brain so he can see what Snape saw when he was at school at Hogwarts himself. So, only that one character. Third person roving omniscience means that the camera is moving back and forth between 2 or 3 characters, maybe even 4 or 5, but I'm going to write 2 or 3, because that's the most common. So chapter 1, we'll use Harry Potter. If Harry Potter had been written this way, chapter 1 would have been from Harry's point of view, chapter 2 from Hermione's, chapter 3 from Ron's, potentially. And then maybe back to Harry, and then Ron, and then Hermione, maybe another chapter or 2 in a row from Hermione's point of view, and then Ron's, and then Harry's. You know, the camera would be moving between the 3 of them. So you would get each person's thoughts or feelings during that chapter. Obviously, this grants the writer the ability to pass you more information. Full omniscience, third person full omniscience, is what people call the God narrator. Because this narrator knows everything. So this narrator can tell you what's happening in this room here, and then what's happening 8 miles away at campus. And then on top of that, what's happening in New York City right now, and what's happening in Moscow, and what's happening in Tokyo. So this narrator can go anywhere and know anything, and show you whatever the writer needs to show you. The reason why this narrator doesn't often get used anymore is because most people experience this narrator as being cold. People don't like cold narrators. It makes the text difficult to read, it makes it hard to get into. So using a fully omniscient narrator is actually fairly rare now. Almost everything that's published is either third-person limited omniscience or third-person roving omniscience. These are the top two, followed by first-person. Older novels, though, absolutely did this. The final one is third-person objective. This is called The Fly on the Wall. In other words, it sounds like a reporter. You don't get anyone's thoughts or feelings at all. It really is like a camera. You are just following people around. The objective narrator does not reveal any thoughts or feelings of the characters. It is, of course, the coldest narrator as a result of this, and is only very rarely used. In some short stories, when those short stories have a social or political message that the author wants to get across without distracting you with the thoughts or feelings of the characters. They just want you to see the incident, the problematic incident, and they just want you to focus on that, and then have you have your feelings without the characters' feelings influencing you in any kind of way. So it has a very specific purpose. They all do. So when you are reading short stories or novels or whatever it is that you're working with, don't just notice what narrator you have. Think about why you have it. Why? Why does the author want the narrator to be a participant versus a non-participant? Why stick to one character versus 2 or 3 or even 5? Or if they went with objective, why? Why are they doing that? They have a reason. There is some specific goal they want to achieve. So think about what that would be. All right. Briefly, I want to talk to you about setting. Hopefully this is just review material. I want you to think about setting as broadly as possible. So obviously, the specific place you're in, the city, if you're in the US, the state, some other places like Canada, the province, the country, and then of course within the country, any country, what region of that country, because that's going to affect pretty much everything. It is completely different to live in northern Italy than southern Italy, for example. The United States, what it's like to live in the northwest versus the southeast, completely different. People talk differently, they have a different accent. So the specific place does matter. And don't forget, thanks to sci-fi and fantasy, place also involves planet, galaxy, universe. Think about where you are in time. If you're in the present moment, when they say it's the present, has that actually aged or not? If they're a couple centuries in the past, you're going to have to think about what the culture was like in that place at that time. Other things to keep in mind, like I discussed in the previous video, would be time of day, the weather, then the time of year, all of which are impacting the mood of the story and the symbolism of the story. Alright, let's stop there. I don't want to overload you, but again, look at my notes that I have included below in Moodle and see what else you can learn.